Andrew, Logan, and Tanya. We're doing a series on local body politics, and really we're going to look at how we can educate New Zealanders on what is going on, how we can improve it, and there is much room for improvement, and most importantly, perhaps, how loyal supporters can get involved and really take back our power locally, and then in the 2026 election, look to take back our power nationally as a people, as a people's movement. Andrew, you had a great suggestion this week. You said, let's look at the history of local councils and how they've come about. But just now, you've given us two bombshells before we came to air. Tell us what's going on in Hamilton. What have you learnt this week, Andrew?
Right, so we are recording this on the 1st of December. So I don't know when people will be watching it, but in the last few days, we have been having council meetings on our 10-year budget and setting rates rises for the next 3 years. And we are looking at a massive rates rise of 25% next year. Which is going to cause a lot of pain.
25%, a quarter of what they're paying in rates, again, added on.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just to let people know here, how long have you been a councillor, just to bring people up to speed?
1 year.
Yep.
So I can't be blamed for the previous councils and their misspending, but all the chickens have come home to roost.
Yeah. What's their justification, Andrew, for that enormity of rates rise?
They are blaming inflation and things like that, but as we know, inflation's at around 7%, so it's hard to justify a 25% increase on the basis of 7% inflation. Fundamentally, it's they can't hide it anymore with borrowing because the council has hit its credit limit. 18 out of the last 20 years, the council has covered its overspending by borrowing and to keep rates down because the voters tend to see the rates rises but don't look too closely at the council books and see all the increase in debt. But now, with rising interest rates, we can't borrow anymore. So this is having a bit of an impact. And people who might have read the newspaper articles or heard about the 25% figure, that's for the first year, followed by other rates rises, and compounded over the next 3 years, it is a 60% rates rise.
Tanya, Ben, you are a loyal candidate in Hamilton East. What is your reaction when you hear this?
I'm furious. We've been trying to get through to the council for such a long time, good couple of years now. And thank goodness we've got Andrew trying really hard to get it out there what's going on, because a lot of the resident ratepayers groups that I've been to, common law groups, we've been discussing this for some time and we are getting stonewalled. And so is Andrew and the guys that are voting against these policies. The people that are in there are absolutely corrupt to the eyeballs, and I am getting to the point. And actually, I had someone call me today who said, Tanya, what is going on? He's a property developer. This is going to hit him in the thousands.
It is. It's going to drive people off their land. Yep, what are the scenarios, Andrew? What are the Tanya? Let's start with you. What do you see as the fallout from this?
This is the land grab. This is the World Economic Forum prices out of our own homes, and they'll come in as mortgagee sales under the when we got our mortgages, and we they secretly gave themselves power of attorney to and we've had people they haven't been able to afford the rates, and the council now are sending police around to intimidate people in Hamilton. I don't know whether you know that, Andrew.
But I did not know that.
Yeah, it's getting really bad. I know probably 3 people that have had police around their houses having a look at what's going on, and they yeah, intimidation.
Logan, Courtney, this is literally New Zealanders losing our country from the local ground level up, isn't it? What's your feeling, Logan, Courtney, when you hear all this?
Yeah, so I mean, this isn't just happening in Hamilton. This is happening all over the entire country. And when you approach some of these mayors, their response verbatim is, well, then if you can't afford your rates, you shouldn't own property. And so I'm kind of thankful that the council in Hamilton's actually hit their credit limit, because up until now, they've, like Andrew said, they've been able to hide all their negligent spending, their fiscal unresponsible behaviour through, oh, we'll just get more debt. And I think we all know, as you can see with our 1% tax policy, that if you're going to use your house, or you're going to use your credit card, you're going to max out your credit card, then I'll refinance through my house, and then I'll just go back spending on my credit card again. This is what councils have been doing. And so what it means is that, yeah, if we had a real central bank that was looking after us, this wouldn't just trigger at the council level. This would trigger at the, central or national government level. And then the Minister for Local Government should be going, oi, what are you doing? How is it that you're saying that you're representing the people when realistically we've paid off of the town water supply, we've paid off your sewage system. So how is it that with all of these things being built generations ago or X period of time ago, our rates should be going down, not up? Unless you're building new hospitals, new airports, you're improving infrastructure, you're creating jobs. That's the only time that your rate should either break even or go higher. But as we see, these people are just absolutely wasting your money. And again, we don't have the triggers, which is what we should have with the Minister for local government. I mean, what are you doing? That would be my question as well. Why is it that you're not stepping in and saying, hey, I'm going to have to disband your council because you're being irresponsible? So, yeah, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked and answered, and not just at a local level. But again, it also comes back to now the people are being held responsible for this as well. If you're not fastidious and micromanaging every part of your council, if you're not running your council will run you. And that's what's happening now.
So it's a call, that is a very important call to people. Get involved, go along to council meetings, put them on the mat and say, why is this happening? Why did they tell you, Andrew, that this was needed, a 25% rise? Is it partly to service all of those loans, all that debt that Hamilton's built up?
The main driver behind it is a bunch of vanity projects, the pet projects of councillors ideologically driven by green roading anti-car projects. And so we've got something like $90 million worth of cycleways, speed bumps, inlane bus stops, and removal of car parks. So each of those projects, when it came up, we voted on it, and there's a group of myself and 5 other councillors voting against them, but we were losing every vote, 6 votes to 8. So at the end of that, with a big spending increase at a time when we know we're at our credit limit, we were already talking about a 19% rates rise. We decided to say, well, no, we're not going to hide this. I kept talking about honesty, and in the end, the majority of councillors agreed to go to the public and tell them that what the real figure for the first year actually is, which is the 25% figure. The mayor was pushing for a lower figure, but spread over 3 years, so higher figures in the second and third year. And again, that's not honest. If we've voted, if we've agreed for these projects, I want the people to see what they're really in for, so that the people actually know that they have to stand up this time. the last council elections, the voter turnout was just 30% in Hamilton. We really, really need people to get active to say, no, this isn't good enough, and it is time to stand up. Because the process from here is it does go out for public consultation, and midway through next year, we have a final vote based on the results of that public consultation. So there is a chance to stop this. If we can switch that 6 to 8 vote the other way around, then we can stop this, save a huge amount of money, and lower that rates increase.
What's the name of your mayor?
Mayor Paula Southgate.
Paula Southgate. If I was in that meeting next to you, Andrew, I would be nailing her with my eyes. Paula, do you know what will happen to the people you are meant to be serving? They will lose their homes. Children will not have a home. We'll have more homeless on our streets. We'll have families breaking down under the pressure of this. Paula, you surely, as a human being, let's leave the mayoralty and the politics behind, as a human being, you cannot sanction this. What would a woman like that say to an appeal from the heart with passion and with a good argument?
Well, that's an interesting point, because the opposition is a green socialist group who will talk about they're doing everything for the people, trying to look after the people. But the reality is the socialist policies don't work. It is better for people to be able to decide what to do with their own money according to their own priorities and their own needs. Some people, or plenty of poor people who are renting, who will be hit through rent rises, don't have any control over that. And that choice between, say, being able to afford a doctor's visit or their rent, they are the best position to make that choice. If they want to put their health behind them and choose to cycle into town, they might want to put their money towards cycleways. Let them make that choice. The socialists don't need to make that choice for us.
Very well said. But my point being, was there any discomfort among the 8 who said, yeah, a 25% rate rise is okay? Was there any sense of horror at what this will unleash? Or are these people so disconnected?
Well, actually, the mayor and the deputy mayor, at the end of the day, suddenly realised when we hit the figure of 25.5%, that it was a bit of an issue. And they both did say something along the lines of, if they knew it was going to be this bad, they wouldn't have voted for those projects originally. I really think they should have had more than an inkling of what we were in for when those projects were being added back in, because we'd all seen graphs from the previous 10-year plan showing a line of our credit rating and our annual spending columns without much daylight between them. So it didn't come to me as a surprise, and it shouldn't have come to them as a surprise.
I mean, Tanya, Ben, these people shouldn't be running anything. It's the same with our national politicians. These people sound totally incompetent. Surely they should cancel the contracts for the pathetic cycleways and all the other climate change nonsense and listen to the people, Tanya. What are you hearing among the people of Hamilton? What's been the feedback?
We've been waiting for this for quite some time. We've been trying to derail it and talk to, there's been a lot of submissions, these petitions, these all sorts of things. Everyone's been hit from every angle. Now they're going to be hit in the pocket. Like Andrew said, we've tried, I would say there's a minority of us that have been trying to get it out to there. We do have bigger groups that are aware, but until people actually suffer they don't do anything, and it's apathy. People, what can I do? What can I do? And I said, well, okay, so it's almost like we need to lead a charge. There's got to be some legal action. We can't wait another 2 years, Andrew, for the 2025 elections. I mean, financially, or there's nothing we can do. It has to be paid back. But in the meantime, what more damage are they going to do? So what do you suggest?
The big thing to realize, Andrew, too, for people who aren't aware, Hamilton's a real test case for the rollout of the so-called smart city, which is the dumbest idea I think that the World Economic Forum has ever come up with. And that's really saying something. The smart city is all about people not being able to move around their city area, basically being tracked and traced everywhere we go. It's an open-air prison, isn't it? A smart city, and Hamilton's leading the charge on that.
They've got some major camera work going up.
Yes. And the speed bumps damage fire trucks.
Mm.
So it is a huge issue. We are choking our city. We are putting people in danger. A couple of weeks ago, one of Hamilton's fire trucks was put out of action for a while because of damage from speed bumps. Because imagine if you're going to a fire at night and you're going fast, because the fire trucks are allowed to go 25 kilometres above the posted speed limit. And so you hit a speed bump at 75 kilometres per hour because you're weaving in and out of the traffic. That's going to damage the suspension and other parts of the truck. And the fireman inside the truck, the driver might see the speed bump at the last minute, but the others don't know it's coming. And they can't brace for it, so they got thrown around in the truck. Similar things happen to the ambulances. The paramedic in the back working on the patient doesn't get a warning, hits the speed bump, and all the equipment goes flying everywhere. It's bad.
The council's breaking its own law. The local government body, health and safety of the people, it is breaching it left, right, and centre, and it's got bad.
What do we do, guys? Logan, Courtney, let's start with you. Where does this begin? Because we talk about let's get good, caring people's movement, NZ loyal people into local government. As Tanya says, in 2 years, so much damage will be done by these destructive people. In the meantime, what do we do, Logan, Courtney? Where do we start now, do you think?
Well, my major concern is they're swapping houses, other people's houses, for bus stops and cycleways. I mean, at the rate that we're going, they're freeing up so much space that when these people are kicked out of their house, they can pitch their tents on the bus stops and the cycleways. And that might sound, like I'm trying to be comedic or something, but that's the ridiculousness of this. We had this back in the 30s. When we look at the Great Depression and all these situations, these people were in the parks and they were shanty towns. And this is what is literally happening to New Zealand. What are we going to do about it? Well, there's quite a few things we can do about it. First off, we have to get the word out. So just like we asked people to do during the election, 5 by 5 by 5. But people, we have to get into car parks. You have to stand at car parks and say, hey, can you afford your rates at the moment? Do you want a 25% increase? I mean, I don't know a single person that'd be like, yeah, that sounds great. Bring it on. It's just, this is absolutely ridiculous. We have to start talking. I think what we need to do is take the COVID-19 way that they dealt with and do the complete opposite. So instead of isolating, we need to start building communities. We need to start talking to each other. We need to start having dinner parties. I don't care. Get your next door neighbours in your house. Start talking about these things. Turn up to that meeting. Vote against it. Then start writing letters and emails and that sort of thing, and bomb and I don't mean with explosives. I mean bomb it with the mail. All right, absolutely, just fill their email boxes up. And listen, you sit there and think, oh, well, my email's not going to make a difference. Yeah, but if 1,000 of you do it, that's 1,000 emails. You do that a day, you're going to blow up their servers. Their servers just aren't going to be able to deal with it. Then start coming up with OIAs, start coming up with, just go and talk to the CEO. book a meeting with the COO, the CEO, start booking meetings with every single department so that they can't function, they can't work. And then that way,
nice idea.
So as soon as they start sitting there going, oh, I've got so many meetings, I can't get my work done, then what happens? Oh, COO, you're not reaching your KPIs. CEO, you're not reaching your KPIs. Guess what happens
Key
then?
performance indicators, yes. Yeah.
See you later. And then when the CFO, the chief financial officer, sits there and says, what are we doing? We can't achieve anything. We're going to blow out our budget. We can't borrow any more money. Now we're going to have to increase rates even more. What's going to happen? What that means is stand for office and support your people that are running for this. When they get in, cancel that contract for the CEO and the COO. You cancel that contract, fire them right there and then put your own person in. It doesn't matter who it is. Make it the mayor. Who cares? At the end of the day, we've got to start doing this. If we can make Hamilton the case study for the rest of the country, bam, that's it. We are then putting the World Economic Forum, the UN, the WHO on notice, as well as Wellington. You keep messing around like this, we will stop you from being able to do anything. Another thing you can do, send as many letters as you can to the Governor-General. At the end of the day, the highest power we have in this country is the Governor-General. You bomb their letterboxes with emails, that's it. They will also not be able to function. And then they'll put pressure onto the Minister for Local Governments and then do the same thing to them. So there's lots of things you can do. And they're just little. Just set an alarm on your phone or whatever. Say must email local council and you just send it. Send it to all of those addresses. So the Governor General, send it to the Minister for Local Government, and send it to your mayor, deputy. Send it to the COO. Send it to all those people and just bomb their email. You'll fill it up.
Absolutely. Well, let's say flood their emails. I love that. But you're right that, I mean, the Governor General was such a disappointment during the whole COVID nightmare, but maybe just enough. It wasn't enough in terms of numbers. Now so many people are waking up. So many Kiwis are angry. Andrew, do you think some of what Logan said there, or all of it, would be highly effective? Mine is, I'd add one thing: stand in car parks, write your own leaflets, print them off, and say, do you know your rates are going up in Hamilton by 25%? Because our councillors are so incompetent who are in the majority. We must change the council. We must turf them out. A leaflet like that. Give thousands of those out every single day. But Andrew, what do you think of these ideas?
So very good. A lot of the locals might not keep up with local newspapers. This hasn't hit the national news. So if you're not getting local information, you'll be unaware of it in Hamilton. So the leaflets and talking to people in car parks, just with the simple question or statement, do you know your rates are going up by 25%? And I'd actually use the 60% over 3 years, because that's a real important figure. And we have a new Minister for Local Government, Simeon Brown, a National MP. So a fresh look at things might be able to get some changes, and flooding him with emails would be good.
Well, that's some ideas, and we'll follow that through again next week with more on that 25% and reaction to it, if you can both keep your ear to the ground, obviously. But let's talk about the history that you wanted to raise, how local councils, how local government evolved, and why. And was it ever useful? Could it all go? What's your feeling, Andrew? Tell us the observations from your historical knowledge.
Yeah. So if you know where you came from, it's much easier to work out where you were going. And also another cliche is forewarned is forearmed. So if you can see what's been going on in the recent past, it can prepare you for what's going to happen in the future, so you can get organized against it. And we're seeing a lot of this. And as has been said many times, the conspiracy theorists usually are proven right in 6 months. And so there's a lot of good history has been created in the last few years for us to learn from. So a bit about councils is they originated from combining water and roading boards in around the 1860s through to the 1880s. So that is the council's core business, is just simply waters and roads, not all the green stuff, not all the
So engineering.
the parks and playgrounds and other things where they start to interfere in your daily life. Simply making roads and getting water to your property and wastewater away from your property. That was it. And over time, other things got added in, such as building consents, which came about after the Napier earthquake in 1931. That's a good example in that all of the building consent originally required was showing on a plan where the connection to the council's water services was on the property. That was it. You did that, you get your building consent. Now, building consents are hugely complicated and expensive, an incredible amount of bureaucracy associated with that. Then libraries, the libraries are interesting because the idea of a free public library came from the United States with a very wealthy man named Andrew Carnegie, who made a huge fortune on railways. And as a bit of philanthropy and understanding the importance of education, he built free libraries around the world. And eventually councils took over the operation of those libraries. So councils have grown by inheriting lots of functions rather than it actually being planned. So in Hamilton, the council's got 28 different business units, which includes the zoo. And if you ever went back and started planning Hamilton from the start, I don't think you would have actually expected a zoo to be included in the council activities. So really, this starts to give an idea of where the structural problems are in the council system. And slimming the councils down by removing some of those business units, some of those functions where they're not appropriate for councils, will reduce council budgets and make councils easier to operate. And examples of this would be, well, libraries is a good one because libraries already operate nationally with an interloan scheme. So instead of Hamilton having its own council libraries and every other council around it also having their own libraries, combining them and removing it from council and putting it as a standalone function, either regionally or nationally, means that the councils can reduce their administration structure and the libraries can have their own specialized administration structure. And what I mean by this is, if you take the example of occupational health and safety, the council needs a system which is so complicated it can deal with a librarian's paper cut right through to swimming pool attendants who are at risk of drowning, through to dog control officers who are at risk of being bitten, through to roading people who are at risk of getting hit by a car. So you end up with a very bureaucratic system where it's trying to be all things to everyone. If you can separate out those functions, then each group can have their own efficient system, run their own way, and this will slim down councils to where councillors actually have an understanding and knowledge of what they're doing. Because I'm pretty hot on some things like building and resource management consents and things. I know a little bit about sewerage, probably more than other councillors, but I haven't actually run a library. I can't offer a competent level of oversight on 28 different functions. So we aren't providing the service that we're actually elected to do because of that. It's impossible to achieve. Let's change the system to make it more efficient. So that's a good example of one way where the history of understanding where councils came from leads to a solution. Other ones are about council rates, given that that's the hot topic of today. Back in 1840, New Zealand did not have a pay-as-you-earn taxation system. There was no income tax. The government in 1840 was run on customs duties. When a ship came into the harbour, it would pay a customs duty on the goods on board, and when it left the harbour, it would pay a duty on that, and that funded the government. That was it. Councils, when they were organised, were given the opportunity to have a land tax, because land is relatively easy to measure, but it was the pay-as-you-earn or income tax system was a temporary system introduced to help fund World War I. So I think it is time to actually review the whole taxation system. And there's been some interesting taxes around the world. In England, in the 1700s, there was a window tax because a lot of the glass came from France and France was the enemy. So the government started taxing windows. And there's a lot of old buildings in England where the windows have been taken out and blocked up so that they don't have to pay the tax. And you sort of laugh at that, but this actually happened recently in Hamilton when there was essentially a tax on kitchen sinks, because the definition of what was a habitable unit was based on kitchens, and so that if you have a granny flat and it's got a kitchen, okay, that's a separate unit. If it doesn't have a kitchen, then granny is really having to live as part of your family. You can't rent it out separately. It's not a separate unit, so it doesn't get rated in the same way. And so this, at first glance, might make sense, but I think it was the Salvation Army had a hostel for homeless men, and they put in basins into each room in this hostel, and suddenly they were rated individually on every single room with the extra charges. So they ended up taking the sinks out.
Oh, how crazy.
So yes, this is real. Now, one thing, another bit of history I'll focus on. There was an economist called John Maynard Keynes. He was operating around the 1920s through to the 1940s. And so that covers the period of the Great Depression. And he had a philosophy which became called Keynesian economics, which is that governments should act in a counter-cyclical manner to what's going on in the economy. What that means is if the country is in recession, governments should actually spend more because it stimulates the economy and helps you grow out of the economy. The flip side of that is if the economy is booming, governments should spend less and save for a rainy day. And one way of doing this is by the number of employees. So when there's high unemployment, why not create jobs, expand ministries, pay more in wages, stimulate the economy? Now, a lot of countries' governments and councils around the world, especially New Zealand, has been very good at that part. It's just that whenever there is a boom, there has never been a cutback in the public service infrastructure and
There's
popular.
never been a saving for the rainy day. Never that.
Yeah,
they just keep spending.
That's right.
Wow.
So the National Coalition has gone in intending to make big cuts in our bureaucracy at a time when we're sort of dealing with a recession. So not the ideal time, but it's something that should have happened many times over the last 50 years.
Mhm.
So they really have to get on and do it. Hamilton City Council employs about 1% of the population of Hamilton, which is sort of a pretty big chunk for what we do. And again, it's always growing. Every recession it grows, every boom it grows.
Just keeps growing.
Yeah.
So what Tanya said earlier, that it's corrupt up to its eyeballs, would you agree with that statement?
Corrupt is an interesting word, and one that I have actually used often around councils, because if you are knowingly incompetent and doing your job taking public money, then I would say that's a valid interpretation of the word. So it is something I do use around councils.
Have they got any idea, Andrew, how people are feeling about this? Because people are actually starting to really get antsy about things, and they will now.
They are starting to get aware of it now because more people are writing in emails, making phone calls, approaching councillors in the street, and there have been incidences which have sort of raised a greater awareness of security. And this is clearly a level of frustration that has never existed in Hamilton before.
Logan, this is going to increase, isn't it? As Kiwis wake up, as they see they've been hurt in their bodies, hurt in their back pockets, hurt in their mortgages, hurt by their banks, hurt by their councils and their government, people are going to be angry. Where do we go with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, if we look at France, if we look at Ireland right now, the councils really, and this goes for central government as well, you have a choice to make. You can either keep doing whatever it is you want to do and stuff what the people say, and then you get big giant bales of hay and manure tossed into your local council customer service officers, or you have them just burning the place down with get out or that sort of thing, or you can stop and you say, look, I have a problem. I'm actually not entirely sure. Like Andrew was saying, he's not a zoologist. He has no idea how to run a zoo. I mean, most of us don't, and I don't think that's a reasonable request. You know, when you take on that job description, you do think that, oh, I'm just going to be doing this and that. Next year, you've got 27 different business units, plus you're an officer of a PCPU, plus you have to comply with every single regulation that's ever been produced. I don't know all of them. How am I supposed to do that? And so I think, yeah, they need to stop and say, listen, I'm not entirely sure that I know what I'm doing. And that's okay. That's why we ask people. That's why we talk to people. You know, there's this person called Liz Gunn. She has this thing where when you're a representative, you listen to the people. And this is what's not been going on. There's been this, I'm the mayor or I'm the prime minister and I'm going to dictate to you what's going to happen. And I think we really have to stop. You know, our people, first off, this isn't the time of Richard Seddon or the 1840s or, 70s or whatever, where it takes you 2 weeks to get just down the road. Representational government really needs to represent. They need to talk to people. We can do exactly what we're doing now. None of us are actually together. We're not in the same place. And yet when we stop and we look at it, I mean, I'm in the West Coast. Liz is in Auckland. You guys are in Hamilton. That is, without us having a caucus meeting or something like that, that would have been impossible. But I don't think that the system that we've got is really serving any of us. And I think too many people, we've consolidated too much power. And as a result, you see it within councils as well. They build these empires. None of them talk to each other. It's all about, what am I going to get out of the system and all that sort of stuff. That's not what public service is. You're there to serve. And how do you serve? You listen. Your masters are the people. And the people, yeah, sure, they get it wrong too sometimes. But at the end of the day, you get it wrong 99% of the time. And this is the thing, is that we need to really stop and start listening to the people. And I think that we need to stop making these meetings at lunchtime or 2:00 in the afternoon, because these people are struggling to like Andrew said, either go to the doctor or pay my rates or pay my mortgage or pay my rent. They can't stop work and come to a council meeting. These council meetings need to be either held via Zoom at after hours, after 5 or 6 o'clock. And again, the people are exhausted from going to work. But again, the people need to take responsibility and say, hey, this is my council, this is my cost. If I just let them go and I don't run the council, they will run me. So yeah, that's really, I think that's the only way we can look at this going forward, is that the people have to respond. I just wish that they would have responded before it got to the point of it becoming physical, because that seems to be what happens. So.
And I really don't want to see violence or anger turning into violence, partly because that's exactly what the World Economic Forum wants. They've tried their best to divide this country in the last 3 years through their puppet politicians, town and country, trans, non-trans, Maori, non-Maori, jab, non-jab. And we're still together as a little bit brittle, but we're still a united Kiwi front. But this idea of getting out on the streets, they love all that anger and hatred. They're trying to rack it up. What did you think of what Logan said then, Andrew?
He's spot on. And a couple of thoughts about that is councils should actually have pushed back on central government on some of these things. Taking on roles in building consents when it really is a national system of consents according to the Building Act, rather than localised council operations, liquor licensing, even fluoride decision-making being dumped on local councils. I'm no expert in fluoride. Why would I be able to make that decision? Councillors should have said, no, don't make us do that. It's not a good system for us. We're not set up for that.
But then, Andrew, what about, I would say it's at least we're getting it away from the corrupt central government. We've got it back to a corrupt local government. How about enough councillors say, well, we don't know what we're doing with fluoride, but what we can do is go to the people. And we are insisting on getting into our town hall and having a nightly meeting, if that's what it takes, where we encourage all Hamiltonians to come and give us their views on what they want in their water, fluoride or not. That would be a revolution, not sending it back up to the corrupt central ones.
Yes, because, I didn't stand for council on any background of any knowledge on that. So why should I be making that decision for people? So,
but I think that's sorry to interrupt, but I think that's the key, that none of us who stood in Loyal even pretended we had a whole lot of knowledge. I kept saying in meeting after meeting, I really have 2 ears to offer you. I have 2 ears. You guys in New Zealand, the people and the people's movement, have the information. I am willing to listen. And together we'll put that together. If only we saw leadership actually as at its heart listening and respecting and honoring. What's your reaction to that? Am I too idealistic, Andrew?
We should have more in the way of referendums. And that's sort of easy enough to do, because we have central government election every 3 years, and local government is offset by 1 year. We always end up with by-elections for either local government or central government. So why not every year, on a set date each year, have elections and referendums, so that every year we can go out to the people and get what they want clearly, yes or no, and make these referendums binding.
I had a brilliant idea, Tanya Barn, of attaching a kind of referenda door to our tax number across the nation. And then locally and centrally, you could just say, for example, centrally, oh, we've got Bill Gates saying there should be another lockdown for a pandemic. Should we lock everybody down? Should we jab you compulsorily? Go to your tax number, and there it will have the referendum yes or no vote attached to that. Do you reckon, Tanya, we could ever dream of that kind of governance where people listen?
Well, I believe that we need to get rid of the tax system generally, but well, and as in that sense of the 1% is fine, and our tax number, that's cool. Yeah, we need to definitely have a referendum, and it needs to be made clear and easy, whether it is electronic for people to read and just click yes or no, like the petitions that we have now. I can't understand why we don't have that already.
It would be so easy.
Yeah.
It would be easy to say.
It is, but they don't want it. They don't want us to do that. They don't want to be. They don't want to work for the people. And this is what's happened with the socialist government in the last sort of 7 years. So up till now. So I think how do we do that? How do we create it and bring that idea to council? Do we need people to vote on that beforehand? Do we need to say this is what we want the government to have, or local government? How do we bring that about? Is it something that we need to address privately to people? Put it out there that let's see if we can take this to the council. Let's through your news media, through Rumble, through wherever, just to get it all and to put in together and to get the numbers, I suppose, through everywhere, every avenue of movement, because there's a lot of people now that are politically aware that were never before.
That's true. And
yeah,
there was a moment, Tanya, where you paused and you went, the councils wouldn't like it because they wouldn't want to be, I knew the word you were going to say. What do you think it was, Logan? I think it was controlled. The council doesn't want to be controlled by the people. And that's the way it should be. The council should be answerable and controlled by the people, not vice versa. Shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And look, we could do that within, 28 days. All you'd have to do is go to, central government and say, look, we want you to enshrine this in law. And then that would make it legal that, we could make referendums of, say, whatever your population is. You can make it, say, 25% or 30% or 15% or whatever, that you have a binding referendum. But, I mean, again, the councils don't want you to do that. What do you think central government wants? They don't want you to do that at all. So this is a flow-on effect. You've got to remember that, we still have a Governor-General that signs off on all of our laws. We sit there and say, oh, well, we gained independence in 1931. No, we didn't. Our head of state is still King Charles III, and his representative is still the Governor-General. So at the end of the day, this is something that we need to remember, is that we are a monarchy. And if we don't want that anymore, then we need to vote for that. So that, again, that's something they need to think about. I'm
not sure whether you're all aware, but Rainer Filmick was coming to New Zealand. Does everyone know who Rainer is? Rainer Filmick? He's a lawyer from overseas. He has his registration in Germany and America. He sued Deutsche Bank in the past, Volkswagen, and a few other massive international what do they call them? Cases. And so what's happened is he was coming to New Zealand, and I don't know how many people were aware, and he was in Mexico on the way because he wanted to work with the Whakaputanga Declaration of Independence. There is a lot more to that than people realise, and there's a group of people in New Zealand that have followed it through from King William IV. Now he handed every single bit of wealth in trust. Like he created a trust to hand to the He Whakaputanga people, like the United Tribes of New Zealand. Now they say the Māori or the Indigenous, well, we're all Māori and Indigenous if we're born here. Māori is actually the British word for people back in the day. So what's happened is he created, we're all beneficiaries to the Crown's trust. So there's a lot of legislation around this that is coming to the fore. These two guys, I'd love to get them on the Zoom, and I asked them if they would come onto it, and they're working with a man who has written a book. It is huge, and it is really quite significant in what is happening now with the Crown and everything like that. Rhino wanted to come to New Zealand, and he was going to work with the people with this Whakaputanga. It's so powerful that there is people in a big yacht traveling around the world in New Zealand. They've got the He Whakaputanga flag and they've got this Spanish flag flying on the mast. They have not been refused in any port without a passport in the world. So this is global. This is a huge global thing that we need to really kind of look into and address, because this goes right through to getting the control through the government and through trying to get some sort of recognition. I think if we can understand that, and this is our history, this is the start of all of this nonsense, along with what how the council's formed down the track. So there's so much more history going back to like 1700s.
I mean, Tanya, I would say this to that. I haven't looked fully into that because there are so many of these forms of rabbit holes, and there's common law, there's lots to look at there, but some people worry that it could be not a trick, but something to put all our energy into, and then these world governments who are controlling us through their puppet local representatives centrally and on the councils, they could easily just send in troops. And then no matter what you've declared in a case or said we're in another system and we're not following your system, they just turn up with their violence, as we saw in Freedom Village, but on a bigger scale. So I don't, in some ways, I have reservations about getting people's hopes up only to have them smashed down that path.
Yeah, I know Rhino was picked up in Mexico and taken back to Germany and put in jail on trumped up charges.
That is the problem. It's the violence. And really where we need to focus, I think, is waking up so many people to what
start from the ground up. Yeah.
That they simply can't. They are overwhelmed by the numbers. It's a huge, huge topic you opened up there, but I do have reservations because I think it gets people's hopes up.
Maybe
I might be I'm in a different system.
Too much understanding. Too much to try and understand and fit in when we've got this to deal with immediately.
Yeah, and really we need to focus. People are exhausted. It's been like a marathon. I'd like to perhaps, Andrew, get your gauge on your reaction to what Tanya's brought up there.
I have read a lot of history into that sort of thing, and right through to the different versions of the treaty. When I'm trying to get people motivated to fight back against what's going on, I do warn them about the need to pick their battles, because it is exhausting. There is a lot of divide and conquer that suits the establishment if we're all got different focuses. It is we've got to choose what's most important that we can actually achieve, and try and coordinate our efforts onto that, and be accepting of everyone's particular interest, but it does require careful management. And I know that many times I've felt overwhelmed. I follow a lot of news from Europe and the US, and I get very frustrated about but there is nothing I can do about it. And I have to remind myself, let that go. Think global, act local, and focus my energies on what I can achieve. So, yeah, very valid points. And it's very upsetting to hear this good guy is in prison on trumped-up charges, because we're seeing that happen more and more. That is the current response that the authorities are using. And yeah, will happen in New Zealand. But yeah, there's not much I can do about it. So yeah.
Like I suppose anybody in any direction, we actually all have to come back to one focus. It doesn't matter about globally, look globally, act locally. I like that. That's really a good point.
Yes.
I love the way, Andrew, you're so common sense. You're so practical. I'm going to give the last word tonight to you, Logan Courtney. Also a very common sense former soldier, somebody who's had to deal with many battles, literal battles. What do you say in terms of what Tanya and Andrew offered there, Logan?
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you can't refute what Tanya's saying. But at the end of the day, if someone with a gun comes to you and says, hey, how you going? I represent this party. There's not much you can do about it. And it sucks, it does. But one thing we can look forward to is that there are groups out there, NZ Loyal is one, where we want to form a constitutional government. And so this is something that we can offer to the people. This isn't a pie in the sky thing. This is a real thing. We have a constitution that we are working through. And as of Tuesday, with our strategic group, we're going through the constitution. From there, we have a strategic plan to be able to help and inform as well as communicate with the people. And we also have a Declaration of Independence, specifically for King Charles III. And so if you want to ray hope, there's one. But if you talk to your friends, you can discuss many. You know, this can work either as part of the government or completely independent of. And if you guys want to just keep working together and changing your local government and then changing your central government, then my hat's off to you. But as a member of NZ Loyal, yeah, that's what we're offering to the people. Again, it's going out to public consultation. So it means that if there are parts or sections of our constitution you do not like, then you guys can send amendments in and we can have discussions, again, using the town hall meeting. And as of next year, Liz and I are going to jump on the road and go around and talk to people in the town hall meeting format, so that your local candidates, as well as your central government candidates, can start working with you to be able to change the system. So hopefully we're not blowing the trumpet too much for NZ Loyal, but things are changing in this country, and thankfully these sorts of things are happening. I know it hurts in the short term, but I can see New Zealand coming together and becoming a strong country, and we're going to decide who we are as a people, and it's an exciting thing to do. So yeah, I hand it back to you, Liz, and say, yeah, thank you for all the work that you've done.
It's terrific, this talk. I'm really enjoying it, the way we're covering a number of really important subjects. But when you say blowing the trumpet for New Zealand Oil, I'll remind you all, if the trumpet is blown for New Zealand Oil, it's simply another way of saying we're blowing the trumpet for the people's movement, for the people to take back our power. That is what we are all committed to, including you, Andrew. And what a fine leader you are in your city. Let's talk again and help people locally and nationally to wake up and remember we are powerful, we are many, and they are but few. We have the power and we will take it back.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Liz.